This is PTV World. I am Syed Shabahat Ali and you're watching Fault Lines. 2022 flash floods is the biggest problem that Pakistan has in hand today. This has surpassed everyone's expectation. The government is still trying to come up with a realistic figure of the damages that the flood has caused. But the damages are so immense that it is going to take a lot of time for the state to realize or to calculate exactly the amount of damages that the country has received. And there are multiple dimensions of the damages, as we discussed yesterday as well. For example, I'll quote you a figure given by NDMA that only the head loss of the cattle in the country is more than 750,000. Now, 750,000 in a country that primarily relies on agriculture and farming of animals. That is the stay of income of most of the part of the country. Now, another problem is with the infrastructure, where the infrastructure that connects various parts of countries to each other, particularly the bridges, the railroad network has also been washed off in many areas. And that actually is giving birth to another host of crises. How the state of Pakistan is going to meet all these challenges, what further challenges we are going to face because of the problems that we are facing today. To discuss about it, I have invited a bouquet of guests, a robust bouquet of guests like always. My first guest in the program is Dr. Qamar Cheema. He is a strategic and political analyst joining me on Skype. And with him, I am joined by Ali Asghar Arbab, correspondent PTV Karachi, who was with UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres during his visit and has seen all the areas where the damages have taken place. Ali Asghar and Dr. Qamar Cheema, I welcome both of you to my program. Starting from you, Dr. Qamar Cheema, you have seen this to be one of the worst crises of our national history. Tell me, how big is the problem for the government at the moment? Because we have a very difficult political setup at the moment. The party that is sitting in the center does not have very strong representation in the province, while provinces are primarily sitting on most of the resources. So given on this paradox of governance, how do you see how difficult the challenge is for the government at the moment?
Thank you very much. I think obviously the state has been fighting with the traditional security threats for long, almost 2 decades, and now we are facing these non-traditional security threats, which are obviously societal, which has brought societal crisis for the country. The first point. The second point, as far as the resources are concerned, since because of the devolution of the power, the provinces are more empowered as far as the funds are concerned. But since this is a national disaster, this is a natural calamity, so the federal government needs to pay attention for that, and federal government needs to raise a global voice so that the world can come and see what has happened. So far, so Pakistan has been successful in internationalizing this natural disaster, which is in Pakistan, and we have told the world that this is beyond our capacity because such kind of natural calamity has not happened. So the highest visit so far of the UN General Secretary, US State Representative Samantha Power. So they are here and they have spoken to the world that Pakistan needs money because no country could have seen such kind of a crisis. So the Prime Minister is going to the United Nations General Assembly to speak maybe next week. So there is a likely possibility he will further highlight that. And if there is a meeting of the Prime Minister of Pakistan with the global leaders, and if there is a meeting with the US President, I believe there will be an further international attention to that. So all what we need is we need to give a united front to the world. So far, where we have failed to tell the world what is the problem is, the united front is not there because the major opposition party, they are around the country, they are going for political rallies, and they are not paying attention to the humanitarian crisis, whereas that opposition party has a government in Punjab and in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. So I think the political leadership need to have a perspective on this humanitarian crisis, and it should not be a divided approach. It should be a united approach. And for that matter, I think the all parties conference should have been there, and the Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and the opposition leaders and the other, they should have sit together. This is a crisis. Okay, this is not about law and order. This is not a crisis from the terrorist or from the non-state actors. but this is a major societal crisis where people have lost their livings, people have lost their lives, they have lost their animals, they have lost their the food which was stored with them. So they don't go to the offices. They live with their daily lives from the farms or from the cattle or from the other the home chores they do. So I think we as a country needs to look at those 33 million people. If we didn't look at those 33 million people with the
Dr.
collective,
Kamachima,
there is going to be.
If you allow me to interrupt you here, recently Pakistan has signed off a deal and received the first tranche of that deal from IMF. Now, IMF has set forth quite humongous targets for us. They want us to earn X amount of money out of various heads. And this flood is going to turn the tables, it's going to turn the equations phenomenally. Don't you think this is high time for our country to go back to the international financial institutions and also seek some further relief, because we certainly will be in deep problem when it comes to meeting the targets that IMF has negotiated with us for more than 6 months?
Well, I think this is a very genuine point, and Pakistan has made a case with the UN General Secretary, Mr. Antonio Guterres, that there is a possibility that the UN General Secretary will recommend debt swap from IMF, World Bank, because of this climate and this disaster, what we have seen. So there is a probability of that, and I think the way during the COVID, the international community and particularly the global financial institutions had to look at the Pakistan's debt and the other countries which couldn't pay the debt. So I think this is the right moment when our GDP is going to be affected. We there will be a 2%. There is a possibility, as the government says, that the GDP will not be as it was expected. It will be 2% less as it was projected because of these floods. And above all, these people cannot contribute into the economy. The colleges, universities, the daily business is all stuck. So this is a very major crisis. So I think the international community must look at Pakistan, and here all those global leaders who run these green movements, they need to come forward, since we do not contribute much into the global
Your
emissions.
point is taken, Dr. Shima. Let me come back to you. Ali Asghar Arbab, you were with the Secretary General of United Nations during his visit, and you have visited many areas with him. So first tell me, how do you find his response to the calamities that have hit Pakistan so hard? Ali
Of
Asghar
course,
Arbab, do I have you with me?
climate change that has affected especially the Pakistan is a drastic situation, and this is disaster made many miseries to the people who are living, and 1/3 area of the Pakistan is underwater, and mostly the areas of the Sindh and Balochistan province are mostly affected with this rain and the flood waters. So it's a good news that the United Nations Secretary General visited yesterday to the flood affected areas of the province of Sindh and Balochistan, and accompanied with the Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and the Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto Zardari. So these during his visit he was briefed about the situation, about the disaster, and then he also saw everything from his plane, and there was this complete area is completely submerged and turned in a river. Especially the district Dadu is a highly hit area, and in the province of Sindh 23 districts are hit due to this flood situation, where the people has lost everything, their animals, their homes and their belongings, their possessions. They are so much worried about their rehabilitation. But it's good news that the United Nations Secretary General has visited the Prime Minister, and he was met with the flood affected people, and also in the province of Sindh, Larkana district and Osta Mohammed in Balochistan area. He met with the common people, he shared with their feelings, understand, and he also visited Mohenjo-daro, which is the World Heritage that is also affected with this heavy rain. So yesterday, after completing his whole trip, the province of Sindh and Balochistan. He reached at Karachi and he talked with the media about what he has seen in the flood affected areas. He said that I haven't seen such a big disaster in my lifetime, and it is everything. The people has lost everything, and he also told the international
Ali Asghar
community that
Bab,
they should come
while
ahead
we have
because the
seen a lot of
Pakistan need
footages coming
so
from
much help.
all these areas, and nonetheless, the media is reporting almost everything. But since you were there on ground, you might have personally observed many such problems that the people are facing at the moment. And while the government has many ends to fix at the moment, what do you believe is primarily the biggest problem for the communities that are stuck in the areas filled with water?
Yeah, of course, you rightly said there is still the flood affected people didn't get so, the governments of course and different civil society, NGOs and even the common man, they are working for them and providing the shelters. But the loss is so much massive. That's why it's a need of the time that the international community should come ahead, because the people are facing a lot of, they haven't belonged, they are sitting on the roadsides and they lost everything. You've seen the Khairpur Nathan Shah, it's a complete city that's completely submerged now in water, and now it's a big problem. The people are worried that this water should, as a drain in the river Indus anyway, they should go back because they have started their life from the zero, because they have lost everything. So the government is trying hard, but the stagnant water is creating further problems in the kind of the disease and epidemic might be like the skin disease, the diarrhea, and these are kind of disease of especially the women and children are mostly hit by these disease. So the United Nations Secretary General also pointed out that the Pakistan needs so much help from the international community, because the climate change, the Pakistan's contribution is less than 1%. Pakistan is not so much paying the cost of the other countries, the developed countries, in the shape
Your
of
point is
climate
taken,
change.
Ali Asghar
So
Bab, your point is taken. Let me
the
go back to
Secretary
Dr.
General also
Qamar
pointed out that
Chima. Dr. Qamar Chima, there are a host of issues now for the province of Sindh. And Sindh has a political problem as well, that the party that is in the government in Sindh is quite popular in the people for last maybe more than 15 years now. But at this very moment, when most of the Sindh, as you initially said, 23 districts are under the water, this is also giving birth to some political crisis as well, because people in hour of need are having more expectations from the government, and they do not actually realize that government does not have such an abundance of resources at their mercy. So do you think it is going to generate and trigger some political panic as well in the province of Sindh and Balochistan?
Well, definitely there will be a panic in the provinces about the capacity, because since it is believed that, for example, in Sindh, if a political party is winning consecutively third time, so it means that they are doing enough for the people, that people are happy with the performance. But at the same time, obviously, for any government, it is not possible to look at this disaster of this magnitude. But obviously, what we must appreciate is that for a moment, Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto Zardari and their and the party, they did well in terms of actually raising a global opinion on that and raising a global voice on that. And the foreign minister himself maybe is traveling this week to the United Nations, and he will stay in US for a week to further raise that voice, because what we have seen is that the Western countries need to come forward for helping Pakistan in that. And I think he's going to raise the voice further, because it is not just about the rescue, it is about the rehabilitation of all these people. We have to give them houses, we have to build houses for them. We would need to look at these people do not migrate to the cities. There could be a crisis of urbanization. There will be a major societal crisis in case these people move to the near towns which are already flooded with the people. And this rate of migration in Pakistan is very fast, since the opportunities in towns and villages are not that much where the people can happily live. So this crisis can give a sort of an idea to people and their families or their relatives. They can ask them to come to the cities or to the towns, which can further create challenges. So here we have to we need to keep these people here, and we need to keep these people near their livelihoods, and we have to make sure that the government gives them some sort of housing. The government gives them some sort of project where they can actually live. They have their own local businesses which they were doing. So that the party, all what the party needs is, the party needs to raise voice up, because the money which is coming from the local people, that is only maybe for a survival of those people, for the food. But for the long term residential projects which are needed, because the homes have washed away, all the resources, what we need is that for infrastructure as well. For example, I was looking that around more than 6,000 kilometer of the road infrastructure has washed away. So we need to connect these villages, these towns to the
You're
cities. So
right. You're right, Dr. Chima. Let me take Ali Asghar Arbab back into the conversation. Ali, as Dr. Chima pointed out, infrastructure has been washed away in many areas, and this is serving to be one of the major bottlenecks for the government as well, because the resources cannot be reached, cannot be supplied to the people as long as the infrastructure, and particularly the railroad network, is not back into the shape. How did you observe about the losses of infrastructure during your visits alongside the UN Secretary General?
Yeah, of course, you rightly pointed out, because in these floods, the infrastructure in the province of Sindh and Balochistan and other parts has majorly affected, because you see that from the 7 to the Larkand district, the Indus Valley is completely flooded with water, and there's no communication, because and at the same time a lot of the defense walls of the different areas, lakes and bridges, they are completely destroyed because of the flood water. So I think it needs urgent need of to restore these infrastructure, and I think it's not possible only for the government, but the international community should come ahead to support Pakistan. But one thing which is the most important thing, I believe that in the rehabilitations, because these flood will come again and again, because climate change is dangerously affecting to the Pakistan. But the only solution to these problems is to completely clean the natural waterways, which are complete as any kind of the rain. The waterway should go from their natural ways to the downward in the seaside. I think the RBOD, which is the one of the biggest project, is not completed yet, and 67% is completed. But if it was constructed in time, I think the Manchar Lake water might drain through that to the seaside, and it was a big benefit. I think the government should do urgently work to avoid the disaster in future. And at the same time, the infrastructure where the roads networks built, there's no any ways, there are no any bridges on the natural waterways. That's where the water is stagnant. And at the same time, in the river of Indus, many influential people has occupied the land. 1,000 acres of the land they are doing agriculture. I think this practice should be stopped, and I think
you're right.
Ali
Asghar Arbab. We have discussed this in yesterday's program as well. But thank you very much for your very valuable feedback on this visit alongside UN Secretary General. Thank you very much, Dr. Qamar Chima, for being guest in our program. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll take a break and we'll join you back with the second segment of program. Stay with us. Welcome back. Ladies and gentlemen, in every hour of crisis, in every event of catastrophe or calamity that that has hit this country, National Disaster Management Authority plays an imperative role. So is the case at the moment as well. NDMA is sitting at the heart of the process, not only helping the government to understand the damages on ground, but also trying to come up with strategies that can help the government to focus in the right areas. To talk more about it, we have invited Brigadier Retired Dr. Fayaz Hussain Shah, who is former Director General, NDMA, joining me over the phone. Dr. Fayaz Hussain Shah, sir, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, dear. Thank you.
And to join with him is Zahid Ishkori. He is a journalist from South Punjab and going to tell us about the problems that people are facing in the south of Punjab. Zahid, welcome to the show.
Thank you, dear.
Starting from you, Dr. Fayaz Hussain Shah sahab. So first things first, tell us about the way it operates, because National Disaster Management Authority has quite a big mandate, but then we have the provincial disaster management authorities. So how do these many authorities work together to help the government to gear up for such challenges?
The challenge is too enormous. Disaster is devastating. 33 million population has been affected. 81 districts have been declared calamity hit. 1,390 people have lost their lives. About 12,700 people have been injured. Over 700,000 livestock has been washed away. More than 5,500 houses have been destroyed. About 1.17 million houses have been damaged. 3.5 million acre crop has been destroyed. Just imagine the level of destruction which has come up, and the challenge which we are facing as a nation is very huge. I would say that presently we are into relief stage of this very response operation, and government is doing its best. The people, they're doing their best. The religious organizations, the NGOs, the INGOs are doing their best. Even the international donors, the UN, they're doing their best. But still, according to my assessment, we are short of desired level of response. First, we have to, the things which I am seeing after having complete view of the spectrum of response all across the flood affected area, I focus on one point, that is the coordination. The coordination between amongst all these stakeholders, I find not at that level which it should be there. So first of all, we need to really focus on coordination. And the second point which we need to focus at, that the relief goods which are coming from different quarters reach to the people. According to my understanding and report, all relief goods are not reaching at the right point, at the right place, with the right people, because there is no central body to coordinate this relief operation. This is the second thing. After coordination, the second point that we need to really make sure that what all we are receiving from different donors reach to the right people. The third point, at this point in time, I would try to highlight that we should get into the damage and loss assessment. This is very important because we have to move forward from this relief stage to early recovery stage. That early recovery stage will only be possible when we will have correct damage and loss assessment. Without that damage and loss assessment, we will not be able to really visualize our future, what we have to do. We will not be able to mobilize the resources. We will not be able to really mobilize the people for next phase of the operation. And the next thing which I am of the view that we should now make strategy that how would we enter into the recovery stage. It's very important. The damages and losses are too colossal, and rehabilitation has to start as soon as possible.
Dr. Fayaz, this was primarily the reason why I asked you in the beginning about the theoretical role of NDMA, because we need to understand how does this body operate, because there are other disaster management authorities, not coordination bodies, not subservient organizations, but separate independent authorities at provinces, and then we have one at the center. How does it ideally coordinate? Because when NDMA, I assume, was created, the devolution hadn't taken place, and with devolutions we have replicative roles in the provinces. So how do they coordinate at this very moment?
I fully endorse your concern. The central body, which was basically a policy organ, which was a coordinating body, NDMA, and according to the 18th Amendment, the complete responsibility had shifted to PDMAs, and then PDMAs had their own DDMAs, which were supposed to be on ground, and unfortunately, formal DDMAs do not exist. These are the ad hoc arrangements which are being made, and revenue department people have to coordinate besides doing their complete spectrum of job. Now, that is the disconnect. I agree with you. Due to this disconnect, that grassroots level coordination has not taken place. And when I talk to people who are on ground, who are doing relief operation, and to me, what reports I get are not satisfactory. We really have to upgrade our coordination level, because the people who are taking goods from here, who are taking relief convoys from here, they are not really meeting those people who can guide them, who can support them, who can protect them.
All right. Dr. Fayaz, let's take Zahid Gashkori into the conversation. Zahid, you just heard what Dr. Fayaz Hussain Shah has said. And would you agree with him to the extent of the areas that you have personally visited? Do you also see a lack of coordination, not only between various bodies of the government, but also between the non-profit sector and the government organizations?
First of all, thank you very much. The most important thing is that the top country auditors have recently conducted a special audit of these disaster management authorities, because 2 years ago the government has ordered the Auditor General of Pakistan to assess how our organization, particularly the disaster managers, are well equipped to meet or mitigate any sort of risk created by the nature. So I went through this report, which categorically said this, that Pakistan is not well prepared to meet such natural disaster, to cope with natural disaster, because the reason is after 2010 floods, an order of Supreme Court of Pakistan and the provincial authorities conducted an inquiry, the reason to know that how these floods happened in the country. There were many recommendations which could not be implemented, and this is one of the prime reasons that we are not in a position to deal with such a disaster which devastated 1/3 of the country. Otherwise, 170,000 square kilometer the area of the country is underwater, which is equal to a complete area of 75 countries in the world. And the major food basket destroyed in the country, and the Climate Change Authority, the National Disaster Management Authority, the Provincial Disaster Management Authority, and all these policies, Climate Change Authority, they even did not conduct a single meeting after 2013 recommendations. And this is a prime reason that how these organizations either were not well equipped, or they were not more serious to alert the situation which happened in the country. But one thing on the ground is quite different, and the loss and damages are even bigger than we think on the ground. Because the reason, as a reporter, as a journalist, I have been covering this during the last 4 weeks, that you cannot imagine on the ground that now the post-flood situation in the 151 cities, it means that 81 districts are partially or half of these districts damaged with these floods, and now 40 million people are homeless. And now the post-flood situation we were discussing is that the children, 1 million children and 0.5 million pregnant women are at the risk because they are homeless. They immediately are in dire need of medicine, the milk, and unfortunately hunger striking in different parts of the southern Punjab. Where I can give you one example, like Road, Laya, Kotadu, and this is a 73-kilometer industrial western part in these southern Punjab. And of course, Sindh remains the worst victim. Now, the post-flood situation is quite alarming. Pakistan obviously cannot deal with it all alone. The international response and pledges are coming out. Obviously,
Zahid, a while ago, Dr. Fayaz Hussain Shah was also talking about it. So let me connect back to him and take his view on this as well. Dr. Shah, you just said, while responding to my second question, that the response of international community, well, has not been as fascinating or as overwhelming as in the past. We remember in 2005's earthquake, there were American Chinooks operating in Aptabad. We were eyewitness to it. We saw a lot of Russian aid coming on ground, and many of the countries of European Union were also very active. Their non-profits could be seen on ground. Such images are either not there on ground or not portrayed or not covered by the media. What do you believe, Dr. Shah, can be the reason behind it?
Shabat Ali, to my understanding, it all depends upon us. If we do not showcase our problem, the world is not privy to what is happening with us. The sole responsibility is of the government of Pakistan to really make the people aware what has happened to us, make the people advocate our problem to the world community that we need their support. Without this advocacy, without this showcasing, no one would come to us. It would be always short of the desired level. This is number one. Number two, since we have not been able to mobilize the government has not been able to mobilize the masses, own resources efficiently, effectively, and adequately. Likewise, the people across the globe also did not feel really enticed, I would say, or instigated, or even preempted to come up for our support. The third point, which I would like to highlight, the case which we need to make, particularly with respect to climate change. It is good that Ministry of Climate Change has raised its point that this human-induced phenomena caused by those developed countries, its impact is coming on us. We are even 1%, less than 1% contributor of the greenhouse gases, but the impact, we are in top 10 countries of the world who are suffering the most. So I put complete onus of this responsibility on the government, not the international communities. When we would really tell them what type of support, aid we need, we will get that. And beside this, I would like to connect what Zahid Saab was saying. In fact, we have not transitioned from absolutely reactive mode to a proactive paradigm. At global level, in Hugo Framework for Action from 2005 to 2015, it was a reactive paradigm we were really working at. From 2015, Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction came up, which was absolutely a proactive paradigm of identifying risk and developing risk governance and investing on this disaster risk reduction and then building resilience. That we have not been able to do, and let me share this with a lot of concern. The disaster risk reduction policy, which we issued in 2013, that has not been even updated in the light of Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction, which has a life of 15 years till 2030. Now it is 2022. In 7 years, we have not been able to update even that policy. How can the response
Dr.
be
Fiyaz,
up
point
to the
taken.
mark?
Dr. Fiyaz, point taken. Let's move forward. Zahid, as you are hailing from South Punjab, and you are also well versed with the problems that the people are facing in that part of our country, would you agree with me if I say this is the most catastrophic crisis that has ever hit Southern Punjab, as the water has not been taken out from there as yet, and people are still living in the areas so badly affected with water?
Absolutely, you are right. Because the Southern Punjab, not only the Southern Punjab, the whole country remained the worst victim. And this time, 22 floods, the country has never seen in the last 40 years. Such a disaster of Indus Basin on the western side, and the new phenomenon this time happened to different parts, like the major parts of Dera Ghazi Khan district, like Taunsa, Sharif, and there have never been any flood over there. The catastrophe is quite huge. If you go on the field, and you would find people homeless, they need food, and women need, of course, the medicine and the shelter, and then the Krod and Pakhar district, and of course Kotadu, and then Muzaffargarh. So the situation is quite alarming over there as well. The worst kind of thing we are discussing here remains that the communication system was not up to the mark over there, and the people could not find the desired help and support from different institutions. Obviously, Rescue 1122 played the major role in southern Punjab to rescue the people stranded in waters. But the other part is most significantly we are missing here in this debate that Pakistan, unfortunately, did not allow non-government organizations, particularly the INGOs, to operate in these areas due to security concern. And it's happening after 2015 that now around 70 organizations left the country without having any operation who could otherwise help the people in the flood areas. But
Thank you very much, Zahid. This was a very important point that you have made, and I would seek comment from Dr. Fiyaz Sancha. But thank you very much, Zahid Gishkori, for being guest in our program today. Coming back to you, Dr. Fiyaz, so there was one important point that Zahid has made. I would take your quick comment on it before actually posting my question. That is part of that comes out of the answer that you gave me previously. But he has just highlighted the role of international NGOs. International NGOs, there are 19 of them that have been blacklisted by government of Pakistan. Government of Pakistan had not given them an NOC to work any further. It happened in the year 2018, and some were blacklisted in the year 2019. Is this one of the major reasons why the Western Bloc, the countries of European Union and United States, are not seen on the forefront because their international NGOs have not been given access or are not having access to the people on ground today?
Yes, this could be one of the reasons. I would not totally rule out, because the grievances which international NGOs have about their status, yes, their response would be mitigated. I agree, but I would now highlight two more points. One point relates to capacity building, and second point relates to the notional concept of disaster management. First, I come to the notional concept. You might be, Shabat Ali, you might be listening people talking about natural disaster. This is a wrong terminology. There is no natural disaster. Since we have not been able to understand disaster correctly, we have attributed this disaster to nature. Really, we have not been able to develop the response accordingly. So first, you should, from your platform, always propagate that natural hazards are there. Floods is a hazard, rain is a hazard, earthquake is a hazard, drought is a hazard, tsunami is a hazard, but there is no natural disaster. All disasters are man-made. When we would understand this, and only then we will prepare for the response. And we shall not attribute this disaster to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that this is the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is not the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is our mismanagement, and we were not prepared. This was the notional aspect which I wanted to highlight. Please highlight this further. This we need to understand at all levels. Second point which I would like to highlight is about capacity building. There used to be proper exercise, there used to be proper training, there used to be proper workshops for capacity building of the people of different levels. And I share this point with a lot of concern that the Capacity Building Institute, which was there with NDMA, which is National Institute of Disaster Management, that is not working for last 2 to 3 years, and that has not been able to really build the capacity of the even PDMAs, even DDMAs, even the stakeholders. And presently, in relief operation, due to lack of capacity building training, due to lack of capacity building direction, this complete fiasco has happened, that people didn't have the capacity to really cope up with the challenges of relief and rescue and search and response operation. So this is something again missing, which we even wish I would like to be done even now. If we can resume our capacity building exercises and we go for capacity building training, at least what we are doing at present would be in correct direction and towards the correct destination.
Dr. Saab, you have highlighted or underlined a number of issues that are causing you as an expert some worries about our feeble system of communication and coordination in the hours of calamity. Now, one of the major points that you have raised is the lack of coordination, as you've pointed out that the Disaster Management Authority was built or was made before devolution, and then the provincial disaster management authorities were made, and the districts could never take place. So is the lack of coordination one of your biggest fears, or the lack of our capacity to anticipate? What is your number one worry as an expert during this crisis? What do you believe is going to hurt us as a nation the most out of this calamity?
Shabat, I would first of all place proactive planning. Proactive planning as number one void which we have at present. Without proactive planning, we will not be able to meet the challenges which are confronting us, particularly in under climate change scenario. This number one. All other things would sprout, would radiate from this proactive planning. And even above this proactive planning, this is at public sector level, above this proactive planning is the political will of the government, which I find missing. Without that political will, we will not be going into proactive planning. Without that proactive planning, we will not be making our vision. Without that vision, we will not be able to mobilize resources. Without resources, we will not be able to implement policies. Without implementing policy, we will not be able to recover. And without recovering, we will continue to stay in the same pain in which we are at present.
Thank you very much, Brigadier Retired Dr. Fayaz Hassan Shah, for being guest in our program today. Ladies and gentlemen, this was my last guest in the program, Brigadier Retired Dr. Fayaz Hassan Shah, and has made some remarkable points One of his major worries is the lack of coordination between the different bodies, as he has pointed out. This gives birth to lack of planning, which consequently results in lack of anticipation of crisis. And when the crises are not anticipated, then they catch nations or states by an utter surprise. And when nations or states are caught by utter surprise, their answers or the responses are mostly devastating in nature. An important thing that I would want to say in the end of the program is that the woes made in a storm are often forgotten in calm. There is a lot of havoc in the country at the moment, and the provincial and federal government are fully geared up to come up, to take this bull by the horns, to come out of this crisis, to steer the nation out of this crisis. But this certainly teaches us some lessons. I hope we as a nation learn these lessons, move forward in a way that in the times to come such catastrophes do not haunt us any further. We'll join you next week with another program. And until then, Allah Hafiz.